Welcome to the Invite Health podcast, where our degreed healthcare professionals are excited to offer you the most important health and wellness information you need to make informed choices about your health. You can learn more about the products discussed in each of these episodes and all that Invite Health has to offer at www.invitehealth.com/podcast. First-time customers can use promo code podcast at checkout for an additional 15% off your first purchase. Let's get started.
Carotenoids are colorful pigments in plants, and they're found in fruits and vegetables. That's where we tend to get them from. And based on reading decades of research, thousands of studies, I truly believe that if you consume a broad variety of these pigments, they lend a longer and healthier life. Now, a good example of these health-promoting effects would be lycopene. Lycopene is a red pigment. People know it from tomatoes and tomato sauce. If you eat a tomato, you do get some lycopene. However, when you cook it down, you're breaking down the fibers, you're releasing the lycopene, it's easier to absorb. Plus, when people tend to convert tomatoes into tomato sauce, they're adding some olive oil. That's a fat that helps you absorb the pigment, that helps you absorb the lycopene, because all of these carotenoids are fatty soluble. So if you take them with other foods that are fatty, you absorb them better. So lycopene is a red pigment. You'd get it in like ripe mangoes and ripe papayas, and you get a little bit in strawberries, any red fruit. But the biggest source in the American diet, at least, is tomatoes. And lycopene has shown great benefit for helping slow down aging of the skin and making the skin softer and giving it a nice pigment. It's true, when you eat carotenoids from your fruits and vegetables, they give your skin a beautiful glow, like this, underlying healthy glow. But they help, the lycopene helps shield your skin from the sun. The sun has damaging effects, it has aging effects. But lycopene has also been shown to have a really nice effect in protecting your vascular system, reducing your risk of coronary heart disease and cardiovascular disease. And it likely has cancer preventive benefits. So welcome to my episode, Carotenoids for a Longer and Healthier Life. Hi, my name is Jerry Hickey. I'm a pharmacist who also has studied nutrition, and I'm over here at Invite Health. I'm also the scientific director, and I'd like to talk to you today how you can include carotenoids in your diet. Eat the rainbow, very important, and also supplements that can help you with increase your carotenoid intake, and also the benefits this will give. Please be sure to subscribe to the Invite Health podcast, and please leave us a review. You can also follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Invite Health. All of the information on today's episode will be linked in the episode description, and you can visit invitehealth.com/podcast for more info. So let's get going. So currently, scientists have isolated over 1,100 carotenoids from plants, mostly from plants. Now, in the plant, the carotenoids have various very important functions. First of all, these pigments, they act as the plant sunscreen. They have photoprotective activity. In other words, excessive sunlight and also ultraviolet A rays and ultraviolet B rays, which are radioactive, can damage the plant, and these pigment carotenoids shield the plant from excessive sunlight and excessive exposure to ultraviolet radiation. Secondly, they absorb light for photosynthesis. Now, photosynthesis is when it takes place in a little pocket in the plant called a chloroplast. That's what makes the plant green. That's where the chlorophyll is. The chlorophyll helps to absorb the light also, and it converts the light energy into chemical energy. And as a waste product, it releases oxygen. So we're actually inhaling plant waste. So these pigments also help the plant work. They're involved with cell signaling and metabolism in the plant, so they have a lot of functions in the plant. By the way, the pigments, these carotenoids, tend to be red, like lycopene, or amber, like beta-carotene, or orangey, like lutein. That's very important for your memory and your vision. Or yellow, like zeaxanthin. In fact, that's named after corn. Corn is zea maize. Zeaxanthin is very yellowish. That's also important for brain function, memory functions, and vision. So The pigments are typically amber, orange, yellow, red, but also pink, like astaxanthin, which is a super powerful carotenoid in the human body. In fact, just a little side note on astaxanthin. You'll get a good amount in krill. Astaxanthin is what makes flamingos pink and lobsters and crab kind of pinkish and salmon kind of pinkish. Astaxanthin literally gets inside your cell. Most antioxidants work outside the cell. Astaxanthin literally gets inside each cell and cleans the free radicals out of your cell. That's amazing, and that's wonderful. And they've shown that astaxanthin has pretty good benefit for protecting the vascular system, your circulatory system, your brain, your muscles, your skin, your digestive tract. It's a very protective carotenoid. So now let's go into just a little bit of the research and find out what these pigments can do for you. And yes, many of them will get into your skin and help protect the skin to a degree from the sun's damaging effects. That does take time for them to build up in the skin, but they definitely have a skin-enhancing, health-enhancing effect in your skin. So here's a study from the University of Georgia. The researchers used functional MRI technology to see how different levels of carotenoids affect the function of the brain in older adults. So a very interesting study. Now this is based on already a large archive of research on two pigments in particular, lutein and zeaxanthin. It's been building over several years. We've known for several decades they're important for vision, but over the past several years there's been really groundbreaking research that they're very important for the aging brain. But just let me give you a caveat. Absorption of these pigments declines from your food with age. So when you're older, you either eat a lot more vegetables and fruit, but it's also a smart idea to add a good quality source as a supplement of natural pigments, natural carotenoids. I'll get into that later in the program. So two of them, lutein and zeaxanthin, have been shown in a lot of research to bolster not just eye health, but cognitive function and cognitive health in older adults. So they used the functional MRI technology at the University of Georgia. They looked at the brain activity of more than 40 adults between the ages of 65 to 86, while they were attempting to recall word pairings that they were taught earlier in the day. So this puts a certain amount of strain on the brain, and also and that can be picked up by the functional MRI, like our parts of the brain overworking. And also it shows you how these parts of the brain light up. Are they functioning well? Are they functioning at a younger, healthier level if you have certain amounts of pigment in the brain? And they found that the individuals, now these are people 65 to 86, I'm in that category, with higher levels of lutein and zeaxanthin, the brain didn't have to work as hard to get the job done. So the brain was just more effective, more efficient. It was working more easily, like a much younger brain. So by the way, not only did they look at how the brain was functioning with the functional MRIs, they were taking blood samples to see how much of the pigments were actually in their body. Because you could do an algorithm. You can look in the retina, because these are important for vision, and you can see how much is in the retina. And you can look in the blood, and you can plug the figures into an algorithm, which gives you a fairly good idea of how much of these pigments are in the brain. So here's what one of the researchers from the University of Georgia said, Dr. Lindbergh. There's a natural deterioration process that occurs in the brain as people age, but the brain is great at compensating for that. One way it compensates is by calling on more brain power to get a job done so it can maintain the same level of cognitive performance. So in other words, just to make up an example, if a young person was using 1% of their brain to get the job done, an older person might have to use 2 or 3% of their brain to get the same job done, but that didn't have to happen when they had more pigment. Now let's keep on going. By the way, a study, I don't have it with me, but a study just came out about a week ago. I remember the study. It was from the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. It was in the journal Nutrition Neuroscience. And they found that people who are overweight and obese, if they consumed a lot of lutein and zeaxanthin, so two of these pigments we're talking about, and if they also consumed enough choline, that's a B vitamin. Choline's a B vitamin. So it doesn't last in the body, so you have to consume it every day. And by the way, about 90% of Americans do not consume enough choline for their brain and their heart and their muscle function and their liver health, etc. But in any event, if they consume sufficient choline, lutein, and zeaxanthin, their brain just worked more efficiently. They were faster at performing like arithmetic calculations, etc. Their brain was more flexible. They had cognitive flexibility, etc. So we know that these pigments are important throughout your lifespan. In fact, there was a study not long ago, poor infants who had passed away. They found that the 60% of the brain, they didn't pass away because of the brain, but 60% of their brain pigment was lutein, 60%. And then there was a study on centenarians. It was a big study. It was down south, either in Alabama or Georgia. And it was about 100 people over the age of 100. And they found that the more lutein and zeaxanthin they had in their blood and their eyes, etc., the better their brain function, because that would reflect how much is in the brain, because they can't cut open your brain and look at the lutein content. That reflects how much is in the brain. They were cognitively enhanced compared to other centenarians. However, the level of post-mortem studies, the level of this pigment drops dramatically in the brain with age. So you're not absorbing it as well from food. You really do need to add a supplement that will have some natural lutein in it and some natural zeaxanthin in it with age. I strongly believe that. So here's a study in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition. That's the journal of the American Society for Nutrition. It's a great journal. It's a very dependable journal. They have good studies in it. It's the Norwegian University of Science and Technology. So all of these places are up towards the top end of Europe. So there was Imperial College in London. There was universities in Oslo, Norway, etc. But there was also Harvard School of Public Health, Harvard Medical School, Brigham and Women's Hospital, which is up in Boston, and the Tisch Cancer Institute. That's the Icahn School of Medicine at Mount Sinai in Manhattan, and the University of Leeds in England. We're back to England again. Okay, here's what they found. 69 prospective studies were included. So that's millions of people. And here's what they found. They found that blood concentrations of carotenoids, higher blood concentrations of beta-carotene and alpha-carotene and lycopene, and also alpha-tocopherol, inversely associated with coronary heart disease, stroke, cardiovascular disease, cancer, and all-cause mortality. All-cause mortality is dying from anything. Complications of diabetes, kidney failure, a brain tumor, COVID-19, anything. That's all-cause mortality. So having a lot of these pigments in the blood was strongly connected to a lower risk of dying. By the way, they found similar effects for vitamin C. Vitamin C is very important. So there's definite proof that eating a wide range of foods, giving you these pigments, not only enhances how long you live, your lifespan, but also your health span, how long you stay healthy. So here's a study from Scientific Reports, 7 studies, over 116,000 participants. If you took in a lot of lycopene, they looked at the amount of lycopene in the blood. So they didn't ask the people how many tomatoes did you eat a week, because your brain can fool you. Because one week you might eat 8 tomatoes, next week you might eat 2. Okay, so over 116,000 people, they checked their blood for lycopene, and they found that lycopene reduced the risk of having a stroke by 30%. Lycopene reduced the risk. That was statistically significant. I would say there's something to that. Lycopene protects the vascular system. It doesn't really get into the brain, but here's an interesting thing. Lycopene is the major carotenoid pigment from your neck down, for your heart, for men's prostates, for women's breasts, for your skin, etc. The major pigments in the brain are lutein and zeaxanthin. However, if you have sufficient lycopene in your bloodstream, it's easier to get lutein and zeaxanthin up to the brain because they're not being misused to protect the body they're spared and they get into your brain at a higher concentration. So now let's look at some of the cancer studies, because these are important. I was looking at lycopene, the red pigment in tomato sauce. I wanted to do a podcast, an episode on lycopene for skin health. So I went into PubMed. That's the Library of Congress website where they collate millions of studies. And I typed in lycopene meta-analysis, figuring that most of the meta-analysis would be either heart health or skin health. And I was bowled over because most of the meta-analysis was cancer prevention. I couldn't believe it. I mean, it was a meta-analysis when done right by a place like Tufts University or Harvard University or Johns Hopkins. They look at all the studies, let's say lycopene and prostate cancer. So let's just make believe they get 100 studies lycopene and prostate cancer. Then they remove the ones that they judge do not have merit, like they're just not up to their standards. Maybe they're poorly designed or poorly reported, or maybe there was some bias in there or something. So they remove all those. So now they have, let's say, 60 studies left. So now you have studies from all these different academic research institutions, all these different doctors and researchers, many, many more people. Now it really means something. So when a meta-analysis is performed correctly, it tells you if something either works or it doesn't work. So here's the journal Medicine. It's the one that's published down in Baltimore, because there's another journal called Medicine. 26 studies, over 563,000 people, men. Out of these men, some of them developed prostate cancer, and some of them didn't. And they found that lycopene really strongly reduced the risk of prostate cancer. It really strongly reduced the risk of prostate cancer. They found that anywhere from 9 to 21 milligrams a day. So under 9 milligrams might not be enough, and over 21 milligrams doesn't give you any extra benefit. That it really had an ability to lower the risk of prostate cancer. Now, there's a whole bunch of meta-analysis showing that. So I want to do a second meta-analysis. I want to do a second one on prostate cancer. This is the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. It's in the journal Prostate Cancer and Prostatic Diseases. It's 42 studies, over 692,000 people. And once again, lycopene really significantly associated with a lowered risk of prostate cancer. They turned it into like how many milligrams a day you take in. And the more milligrams per day you took in, of course, to a point, the better your level of protection for prostate cancer. But it prevented all cases of prostate cancer. But here's the important thing. It was preventing the very advanced, aggressive form of prostate cancer by 26%. That's really hard to do. A lot of men can develop prostate cancer, and it's watchful waiting. The doctor figures out a score, like a Gleason score, and they say, hey, you're okay, it's not dangerous. We did your 4K score, and we don't think your prostate cancer is going to be dangerous, so let's just keep our eye on it. And this could go on for years, and the prostate cancer may never be a problem for them. But other men, the prostate cancer changes, it mutates, and it becomes aggressive, and it breaks out of the prostate, and it goes to other places, and then, of course, it can kill you. And the regular treatments, like blocking testosterone, are no longer working. So now they have to go to all kinds of fancy drugs. And they found that not only was the lycopene lowering the risk of prostate cancer, but it was lowering the risk of advanced prostate cancer, the dangerous kind, by 26%. That's pretty cool. So let's look at some more of these studies. Here's the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition. It's the School of Public Health, Imperial College in London. I have to tell you, those Brits over at Imperial College London churn out a lot of high-quality research. They really do. But now we're looking at these pigments and breast cancer. Now, it's a systematic review, so they went all to these websites that collate the information, like PubMed that I explained before. And then they do a meta-analysis. So here's what they found. Intake of natural beta-carotene significantly reduced the risk of breast cancer. Well, yeah, they said significantly, but it was only 5%. But, I guess you have to put that in some form of understanding. Breast cancer is so common that if you could cut the risk of breast cancer by 5%, according to these researchers, it meant something. But all carotenoids, like alpha-carotene, lycopene, lutein, zeaxanthin, beta-carotene, altogether cut the risk of breast cancer by 22%. And when they did some additional figuring, when they separated everything, now they came to the conclusion that beta-carotene at high doses actually cut the risk of breast cancer by a strong 26%, and alpha-carotene cut the risk of breast cancer, and lutein, our friend lutein, cut the risk by 32%. Okay, so carotenoids in general, when they're packed together, are really good, and even individually, they have a protective effect from breast cancer. So here's the Journal of the National Cancer Institute. They're looking at 8 prospective studies. Prospective studies are usually huge studies. And they found that alpha-carotene cut the risk of breast cancer by 13%. Beta-carotene cut the risk of breast cancer by 17%. Lutein and zeaxanthin cut the risk of breast cancer by 16%. Lycopene cut the risk of breast cancer by 22%. That's the red pigment in tomatoes. And total carotenoids cut the risk of breast cancer basically 20%. So that is pretty darn good. And it gets better, because while these pigments are protecting men from prostate cancer and women from breast cancer, they also help protect us from head and neck cancer. So here's the Journal of Cancer Epidemiology's Biomarkers and Prevention. I read that journal every month. I hate to read it. It's a scary journal, but I read it. But this was good stuff. It's the University of Milan and a couple of universities over in Rome. 15 case control studies and 1 prospective cohort study. So there's a large population here. Beta-carotene cut the risk of basically head and neck cancers by 54%. Like, what's the most common head and neck cancer? Probably squamous cell carcinoma of the skin. Oral cavity cancer by 43%, so cancer in the mouth. Oh, wait, did I read that incorrectly? Beta-carotene cut the risk of oral cancer by 43%. I'm sorry, I read it incorrectly. And for laryngeal cancer by okay, let's look at this journal, Cancer Epidemiology, Biomarkers and Prevention. Now, I read this journal every month, but it's a scary journal. I don't like to read it, but it's important to read. And it's different universities up in Rome, Italy, and the University of Milan. And they looked at 15 case control studies. That's comparing people with a cancer to people without. And they looked at 1 prospective cohort study, which could be a giant study. Prospective cohort studies are usually huge studies, like 25,000, 100,000 people. And here's what they found. And they're looking at head and neck cancer. So like a common head and neck cancer could be cancer in the mouth, or a laryngeal cancer, or squamous cell carcinoma. And here's what they found. Beta-carotene cut the risk for cancer in the mouth by 54%. And cancer of the larynx, your voice box, by 43%. Lycopene reduced the risk of laryngeal cancer by 50%, and lycopene, alpha-carotene, and beta-cryptoxanthin were associated with at least a 26% reduction in the rate of both oral and pharyngeal cancers. So while these pigments are protecting men from prostate cancer and women from breast cancer, they're protecting our oral cavity, our mouth, our pharynx, our larynx from cancers associated with that. Maybe these hairdressers that work in salons should think about that. The hairdressers, typically there's a lot of conversation going on in the hairdressers, salons, and they're inhaling all those hairsprays and all, and they have a higher risk of laryngeal cancer. So maybe they need more pigments. Okay, let's keep on going. Here's the journal Advances in Nutrition, And now we're looking at bladder cancer, which is a nasty cancer because it tends to come back again and again and again, the kidney bladder. And they're looking at circulating carotenoids, the amount of carotenoids in your blood, and the risk of bladder cancer. Now, it's the University of Texas Health Science at San Antonio, the Mays Cancer Center in San Antonio, the Department of Urology, University of Texas Health Science Center, and the Markey Cancer Center. That's the University of Kentucky. So it's 22 studies, greater than 516,000 people. They looked at the amount of carotenoids in the blood. So once again, they didn't just depend on a questionnaire about the food people eat. They actually looked at the blood, how much of all the carotenoids they were. And here's what they found. The total carotenoid intake reduced the risk of kidney bladder cancer by a stunning 64%. What else reduces your risk of bladder cancer? Well, never smoking. Smoking is a major cause of kidney bladder cancer. And also drinking a lot of fluids. If you're dehydrated all the time, it increases your risk of not only kidney damage, but kidney bladder cancer. You want the fluids to wash the toxins out of the kidneys. Now here's pancreatic cancer, which is a scary cancer because by the time they find it, it's usually well advanced. It's the International Journal of Food, Science, and Nutrition. And it's 18 studies. And they're looking at the intakes of the minerals selenium and vitamin C and vitamin E and then a whole bunch of carotenoids. And here's what they found. All of these together reduced the risk of pancreatic cancer. Vitamin E reduced the risk of pancreatic cancer by 53%. Beta-Carotene reduced the risk of pancreatic cancer by 26%. And our old friend Lycopene, which lowers the risk of breast cancer in women and the risk of prostate cancer in men, lowers the risk of pancreatic cancer by 15%. That's pretty darn cool. And that's based on 18 studies of thousands and thousands and thousands of people. Here's esophageal cancer. I mean, I hate to keep on talking about this, but I just want you to know it's so important to eat these things. Higher intake of beta-carotene, alpha-carotene, lycopene, beta-cryptoxanthin, lutein and zeaxanthin reduced the risk of esophageal cancer by 42%. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? And here, 17 studies, 458,000 people. In the journal Cancer Medicine, Imperial College London, Norwegian University of Science and Technology, the University of Leeds, that's in the UK also. So 17 prospective studies, over 458,000 people. The amount of alpha-carotene and beta-carotene, total carotenoids, and retinol, which is vitamin A, really lowered the risk of lung cancer. I mean, it really meant something. So what can you do about it? Well, you eat the rainbow. I mean, you eat the rainbow. For instance, lutein is a yellow pigment, so you'd find that you'd find some in egg yolk, you'd find it in corn. Lutein is an orange pigment. I apologize, I'm getting ahead of myself. Lutein is an orange pigment. It's in green leafy vegetables. You don't see it because the chlorophyll, which is green, hides it, but it's in there. So when you eat your spinach and your broccoli, you're getting it. Pistachio nuts have a little bit. Zeaxanthin is yellow, so you get it in things like corn. Lycopene is red. Hey, the best source is tomato sauce. Astaxanthin is pink. Well, the easiest way to get astaxanthin is to have some krill oil capsules. They have natural astaxanthin. Beta-carotene is amber, but it's pretty ubiquitous in fruits and vegetables, so it's easy to get that one. So if you can eat a cross-section of different colored vegetables and fruits, you're getting a cross-section of all these different pigments. And not just carotenoids, but you're also getting polyphenolics. That's a whole different conversation. There's thousands of them. They're very protective. Like they would be the protective things in like a milk thistle plant for the liver, or resveratrol for the brain, grapeseed extract for your circulation. Those are polyphenols. So when you eat all these different colors, you're not just getting the carotenoids, you're getting the polyphenols. Now we include a cross-section of natural carotenoids, that have been used in human clinical trials in our multivitamins. We include alpha-carotene, we include lutein, we include zeaxanthin, we include lycopene, astaxanthin, natural beta-carotene. And I'm also coming out with a supplement very soon. It's called Antioxidant HX. It has several vitamin antioxidants like tocotrienols, tocopherols, and vitamin D, which is not necessarily an antioxidant, but it allows antioxidants to work better. So it's kind of like the backbone, allowing them to function better. But it has a whole bunch of these pigments. It has the natural lycopene, 5 milligram, natural lutein for your vision and your brain and your memory, 6 milligrams, natural zeaxanthin, natural alpha-carotene, natural astaxanthin. So I think when you're older, you just can't depend on food. You need to eat these foods because there's a lot of things in foods that are in these foods, the vegetables and the fruits, that are so healthy for you. It's not just the carotenoids. But because carotenoids are harder to absorb with age in general, it's a good idea to take an antioxidant supplement that has natural carotenoids. The synthetic carotenoids don't work. It has to be natural. Not only that, but certain drugs lower your carotenoid level. For instance, I was talking about lutein for your memory and your vision. Well, when you take a statin drug like atorvastatin, which is Lipitor, or simvastatin, which is Zocor, or rosuvastatin, which is Crestor, when you take a statin drug, when they lower LDL cholesterol, they're also lowering the pigments, because LDL is the messenger that delivers these pigments. So LDL isn't all bad, it's just under certain circumstances it's bad. So as you grow older, it's harder to absorb some of these pigments, and then you're on a statin drug to lower your cholesterol to help lower the risk of heart disease, and that further lowers these pigments. So it really becomes important to take a supplement to support your intake from your food. In any event, thanks for tuning into the Invite Health podcast. You can find all of our episodes for free wherever you listen to podcasts, or just go to Invite Health and our loading page, our cover page. Just scan about halfway down, and you'll see a big icon for the podcast, and you click that, and several hundred podcasts will come up. And if you listen, please subscribe. If you listen to more of them, please leave us a review, and you can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Invite Health. And I hope to see you another time on another episode of the Invite Health podcast. Thank you so much for listening.